First and the most painful thing that I learned is what people believe. Like people say, हमारा गांव में ऐसा नहीं होता है. Like this doesn't happen in our village. Is unfortunately completely false. It happens in every village, though they may not realize it, but it does happen.
Hi everyone, and welcome back to another episode on the Changemakers podcast. Today's episode features filmmaker and animal rights activist Harsha Atmakuri. Harsha is just an amazing guy. I met him at the Asia Farm Animal Day in Malaysia, and then we met in Mumbai to record this episode together. So Harsha is the director of the investigative documentary Maa Ka Doodh, which is Hindi for Mother's Milk, and it's a great, amazing documentary that exposes the cruel reality of the Indian dairy industry. So in this episode, Harsha shares about his journey from studying medicine to becoming an animal rights activist, and then about the journey that led him to creating the documentary. So tune in to hear Harsha discuss about his vegan journey, the challenges of investigating the dairy industry, and about the complexities surrounding cow and buffalo exploitation in India. Harsha shares insights into the marketing strategies behind A2 milk, and he really talks also about the fate of the milk calves in the dairy industry. So all around, just really valuable information, and Harsha's work in general is just so valuable to the animal rights movement. And I'm so happy that I got to interview him for the podcast. So yeah, I hope that you find it valuable too. So yeah, without further ado, please enjoy my conversation with Harsha on the Changemakers podcast. Welcome, Harsha, on today's podcast episode.
Thank you for that, and thank you for having me here.
Yeah, thank you for being here. Could you give the listeners a little bit of an introduction about yourself, who it is that you are, and what it is that you do?
So speaking of myself, I am from South India, and by education I studied medicine, human medicine, but by practice, in today I would call myself as an animal rights activist.
Nice.
Yes.
Which you definitely are. Can I ask you about your vegan journey? How long have you been vegan, and what turned you vegan?
So I've been vegan since end of 2016. That's roughly maybe 7 years by now.
Wow,
Yes.
nice.
And it started much before that. After I completed my medicine and cleared my license exam, and that I thought of taking 1 year break and do something that I'm very passionate about, which is studying Indian and Western philosophy. So during that time, I was reading a lot of works, especially from Western. It's mainly Tolstoy, and from Indian works of various people, like from Swami Vivekananda to Mahatma Gandhi and Srila Prabhupada and many others. So while studying this, the one thing that is common in all this, whether it's Tolstoy or Indian, there is an essence of compassion that is spoken here and there, and often it is mentioned that there is a cruelty in dairy also. So by the time I was already a vegetarian, I was born and raised as a non-vegetarian, and I turned vegetarian back in 2009 when I accidentally entered into a slaughterhouse and saw how animals are killed.
Wow.
It was like an overnight decision.
Which animals? At the
Chicken.
slaughterhouse, yeah?
Yes.
Wow.
And so
Powerful.
while studying these, it's like an inner call for me. Like I wanted to try to become a very strict Jain, Jain diet,
Nice.
no root vegetables, no animal products, not even dairy or honey and all. And I didn't know that kind of diet, it's called vegan back then.
Right.
So I followed very strictly for 3 months, and then during that time I also used to work in a hospital, and it's a very hectic job. It's a very physically demanding job, and one major mistake I did during that period was I ignored the nutritional aspect. So I was eating very plain food without thinking about the nutrition,
Yeah.
So this is the major problem for people who transition from one dietary lifestyle to another, is that people do eliminate instead of replacement.
100%.
Yes. So that was my mistake as well, and I felt sick. I mean, physically sick.
Wow, yeah.
So I thought maybe this diet is not suitable for me, because even then it didn't cross me that it's the nutrition that I should focus on. So I went back to being a vegetarian. And then I left my clinical practice and moved to Mumbai to work with pharmacovigilance clients as a drug safety physician and medical writer. And during that time, I stumbled upon again, I always try to read philosophy and all. And I started visiting Krishna temples wherever I go. And one temple that I regularly visit, they used to say that they serve only ahimsa milk or Gaushala milk, like that is milk taken from well looked after animals,
Interesting.
which I blindly believed it. And by the time I again left all the commercial dairy aspect, dairy products, but I continued, like whenever I have a craving to eat something dairy,
Yeah.
I used to go all the way to the temple, travel 2 hours to the temple,
Wow.
consume it just for the craving.
Wow.
And
Dedication.
during one of these days, I was at the temple, and from the back gate there is a huge truck entered. And when they opened the truck to unload the goods, I saw like it's total completely commercial dairy products. It was you can say a cultural shock. Like what the monks were telling me is very different from what I saw there. So when I inquired initially, they denied to answer. Uh, uh, and then the more I questioned, from denying it went into mockery, insults, and every time they say that you should not worry about this, you should read Bhagavad Gita and chant these mantras. That's it. You don't worry about this. That's their karma. You should
Interesting.
focus on your karma.
Oh.
And I found it very manipulative, trying to undermine the truth. So I stopped visiting the temple, and then I realized that there is no such thing as ahimsa milk. It's just an inner feeling, not a practical feeling. So I turned vegan altogether. It's more of a spiritual
Wow.
journey,
Yeah.
rather than a like empathetic journey. Like when it comes to quitting dairy products.
Wow.
And as soon as I left dairy products, one day my colleague happened to give dairy-based sweet in the canteen, and I told her like I am not consuming dairy products anymore, but thank you. And she said, "Oh, are you vegan?" So that's when I heard the word vegan. And it's surprising that though I studied medicine, we never heard the word vegan in my
Wow.
5 years of medical education. I hope it is changed now.
Yeah.
So
Crazy.
so I immediately, out of curiosity, I searched about the word vegan, and I looked around and came across a Facebook group, and I joined the vegan community groups in India.
Nice.
And just within few days, I saw a post that there is an outreach happening in Thane region of Mumbai, which is quite close to where I live. So I immediately said like I would like to be part of it, and we coordinated, and I went to the venue, the meeting spot.
Yeah.
We did outreach, though it was my first outreach, and I was very extreme introvert, you can say. All I did was like at least 90% of the time was I was very silent, and I was looking at others activists who are talking, just looking and observing. That's it. And in the last 10 minutes, I built some courage, and I spoke to a couple of people. That was my first day of outreach.
Wow.
Though emotionally it is very challenging as an introvert, but I felt like I should do it more, because I cannot keep quiet for
Yeah.
the more I keep quiet, animals suffer, because crying doesn't stop them from slaughter. It's the activism that stops.
Yeah. Exactly.
So that what pushed me to go regularly to outreaches,
Nice.
and that's how I became an activist. I would say part-time activist, because I still used to do job Monday to Friday, and Saturday and Sunday I did outreach. And
Cool.
during the weekdays, whenever I get free time, I used to do some kind of online activism, either like WhatsApp communication coordination,
Nice.
preparing for the next weekend's outreach, these
Nice.
kind of stuff. Yeah.
Wow, that's so cool that from the moment you turned vegan, then your activism journey started as well, kind of simultaneously, almost. That's really cool, because it can sometimes take a bit of time for people to get comfortable with that, and it is very uncomfortable to do that, but it's also very necessary.
Yeah.
So.
And I used to get panic attacks every time I go to outreach,
Oh man.
every time, and it still happens today.
Yeah.
If I go to outreach.
Yeah.
But I couldn't do it because of I have a lot of other works. But one simple method that I used to follow is, if I'm reaching the venue, just I will stop 100 meters before. I take a 5-minute break and I take a deep breath and then go to the outreach.
Is it because you're going to be talking to people who are, like, you're trying to...
I don't know. I think it's an introvert thing.
Oh,
probably.
okay. So it's not has to do with vegan activism. It just has to
it
do
has
with you
nothing
putting
to do
yourself
with
out
it.
there. Okay.
No, once I start talking to people, it's like not stopping. Like I
Okay.
can go on for 3 hours straight.
Nice.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So it's just that initial.
Yeah.
That's so cool though that you still push yourself even though it's so hard for you as an introvert.
Yes.
I love that. So coming to that part of activism, now you have directed a documentary and you've gone into the filmmaking space and doing that form of activism, which is really, really powerful stuff. So how actually did you get about to start going from that vegan outreach to filmmaking?
So, I mean, I never imagined in my life that I would be doing a film, let alone directing or, you know. Because I used to do outreaches every weekend, Saturday and Sunday. The maximum I could do is talk to maybe 30 to 40 people. I think my highest was 60.
Wow.
That was one time.
That's a lot.
60 people. And but still, I feel like I should do more. This is not enough, talking to people in a city with 20 million people is talking to 30 people or 60 people a weekend is not enough. So one day it just came to me that maybe I should do some video about it, about pick some issue and make a video. And so and if you see that video, you can see that I don't even know how to hold a camera with my hand, and it's a very badly focused video. And surprisingly, even though it is badly focused, and I would say it became viral on WhatsApp groups, and it reached a lot of people. And that gave me the idea, maybe I should focus more on the videos. So I started, it's all self-taught. Whatever I learned about filmmaking, you can also learn, or any layman can learn from YouTube.
Amazing.
So I learned everything, every time I sit in front of computer, I learned something new about editing, how to do the storytelling, what kind of techniques I can use. It's a slow evolution, but I did manage to make videos. And then I started making videos for organizations like Animal Save Movement, and they really liked my style of filming and editing and how I take interviews.
Cool.
And it's an evolution,
Yes. And then when did you start? When did you decide then that you wanted to make a full-on documentary about the dairy industry?
So it was back in 2018. I decided to quit my job and become a full-time activist, at least for 2 years. Take a 2-year break.
Wow.
And
amazing.
And that idea is being in my head for at least a year. So I've been saving my salary every month, and once I felt like, okay, you have enough money for 2 years, I immediately resigned from my job. Once I resigned, unfortunately, I couldn't do what I wanted to do during that time. There are some you can say politics in activism, I would say. For which I was unable to have a team or colleagues who can work together and make those content that I wanted to do. So that's when I just started, like, if I have to work alone, what I can do. Like, I started a page called Truth is Vegan because if anyone, the idea behind it is anyone who follows truth will automatically go vegan.
Yes. I love
that.
Yeah. So true.
And then it's about making posters and taking interviews and that kind of channel. And then few months later, I started a page called Vegans of India. It's like Humans of New York. It taken from inspiration from them. And the reason I started it, because during that time the founder of Humans of New York, I forgot his name, he was in Mumbai. I was constantly messaging him every day that please cover some vegan stories, someone who is a vegan, about someone who is an animal rescuer, And of course, he's a very busy person. He must have received a message from at least 10,000 people each day. So I'm just one of them. Obviously, for those reasons, he may have missed my message. So I felt like, why do you reach out to people who are, practically very difficult to reach? So that's when I thought, like, why don't I start it myself?
Nice.
So then I started this page, Vegans of India, and it was it was going pretty well. But still, I was not happy with the outcome. Like I didn't leave job for this kind of outcome. I want a very huge impact.
Wow.
So I thought, like, what can I do at an individual level to make a bigger impact? Then the idea came to me, like, why don't you make a documentary? It says I would say introspective thoughts.
Yeah.
So initially, my idea was to translate the film Cowspiracy to Hindi. During that time, the co-director Keegan was in India. I happened to meet him, and we interacted,
Nice.
and he was very much interested that I'm interested to dub it in Hindi.
Yeah.
And the unfortunate reason is I don't know Hindi. So
Plot twist.
plot twist. So, and I couldn't find a translator, so I had to give that up. And then the next idea came to me is, why don't I make an Ethlinks kind of film for India? Because whatever the footages that we use, it is always people say that this is from Europe or America, and this doesn't happen in
100%.
India.
That's a classic one.
Again, here the unfortunate reason is it needs team effort. I cannot do footages alone. If I can do it, but it will take a lot of time, at least 3 years, or it's a long project. And I tried pulling some activists from all over India together, but that didn't work out. So I gave that up as well. And then finally I asked myself, like, pick something that you can do it on your own.
Wow.
Don't pick something that requires team or someone else. So okay, then I thought a lot. The first question that came to me is, what is the most challenging as an activist to speak about animal rights to people? In my experience, I've realized that it is easy to convince a non-vegetarian about animal cruelty and make them consider about switching to vegan lifestyle than a vegetarian, because people believe that dairy has no cruelty in it. So that's kind of belief is there. And even I thought, like, maybe it doesn't happen in their village. Maybe it is something unique, isolated incidents, not a global incident. So I thought, like, okay, let me do an investigation. Let me find out it myself. So that's when the idea of focusing a film purely on dairy industry came in.
That is so important. Yeah, because when your documentary came about, I was like, oh my God, finally a documentary on the dairy industry, because it's such a misconception in India that dairy is cruelty free. They have this idea, even people from outside, they say, but isn't cow slaughter illegal? Like, how, the people don't understand how India is like one of the largest beef exporters in the world. So it's so important to get the information out there on why that is the case. And that's why I'm so happy that you decided to take that project upon yourself and create this documentary.
Yes, I also want to learn about this issue at the core. It's very, when you say India is the largest dairy beef exporter, it's quite obvious, like, okay, dairy and beef.
Yeah.
But we need to understand, like, how it became the largest exporter. What are the political and religious angles that play, and why it is legal in some states and why it is not, and what are the issues farmers are facing. It's a very complex subject, especially when religion is involved.
100%.
When the Hindu-Muslim conflict is always on the edge. So this is a very complex subject that needs to be addressed in a very, very, how to say, what is the word for,
like a subtle manner, or like or like a delicate,
very non-offensive way, I would say.
Yeah.
Because anything, you can't point fingers at one person or another person. It will in unbiased way.
Yeah. No, that's powerful. And so you had to do a lot of research before
I
you
did
started?
like. And if you see the film credits, there are people who are involved in the research. It's a small team, and all of them are very passionate animal lovers, and all are PhD doctorates. I picked them because they are very good at research. So we formed a small team, and this is during the COVID, the first wave in India, and we all did the research in the at homes, and they all shared data. I analyzed it, and based on that data, I I mentally prepared certain questions and
Cool.
I reached out to those people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How did you know which like farmers to contact or which places
So
to go?
there was no plan, like
Yeah.
it's like let's go on the streets and find out who is interested to
Okay.
give interviews.
Yeah.
There was no planning
Yeah.
when it comes to meeting farmers.
How long were you? How long was the shooting process then, or the
So
process in general?
on and off, like the entire shooting process took nearly 1 year,
Okay.
just the shooting part.
Yeah. And editing.
Because we have to travel on by road.
Yeah.
We don't want to travel by air because we will miss what is happening on the ground.
Interesting.
So if you are traveling by road, you can stop wherever you want and see a lot of issues. How you can see, if you go on the highway, for example, from Mumbai to Kolhapur, you can see a lot of bullock carts transporting sugar cane, and animal transport. There are even these bull competitions that happens in Maharashtra. We came across these things.
Seriously?
And this is just in Maharashtra.
Wow.
So similar things we found in each state. And
You've been around, like India, like all.
Yeah, most of them except Orissa, Bengal, and Northeast India, and Bihar. We covered the most of India, and Jammu and Kashmir also we couldn't go because of the political reasons back then.
Wow.
Yes.
Yeah, amazing. Could you then share what it is that you learned? I mean, there's a lot in the documentary, but what are some important points that you want to address?
So I mean, the first and most painful thing that I learned is what people believe. Like people say, "Hamara gaon mein aisa nahi hota hai." Like this doesn't happen in our village. Is unfortunately completely false. It happens in every village, though they may not realize it, but it does happen. And the second thing I realized is, when we say animal cruelty, different people understand cruelty in different aspects. For me, as an activist, separating a mother and child itself is a form of cruelty. It's an emotional cruelty, trauma. But when you ask a dairy farmer, they don't even realize that they are doing cruelty. So it is a very subjective in nature in many cases. And when we spoke about these things to the farmers, they then realized that, oh yeah, just like my child was separated from me, similarly I am separating her child from the mother.
Right.
So they never even thought that they are doing animal cruelty. That's the painful part.
Yeah. Do you think people in India are aware that cow slaughter and buffalo and cow slaughter happens?
I've been doing activism for a long time, and most people are not at all aware. Even now, the film is released, I think, 9 months ago. And still, the reach is, compared to the population of 1.4 billion, it reached at most a few million people. It has to reach a lot more.
Yeah. What has actually been the response so far on Maa Ka Doodh?
So surprisingly, we were very apprehensive because the topic is very sensitive, and it has political, economical, and religious connections. We were very apprehensive that we will receive backlash, fearing that I avoided visiting my home for 4 years. Just crazy. Because I don't want my family to be targeted in any way.
Wow.
But surprisingly, no backlash we received. Not even after 9 months. We did receive some negative comments here and there, but not the backlash that we were anticipating.
Okay, that's
that
good
is
news.
a very, you can say it's a shock.
Yeah. Because I understand that you're kind of one of the first to do this, and then you're expecting there to be a lot of backlash for exposing the truth, essentially.
And the second thing is, even dairy farmers were, commenting on YouTube video that one farmer, I think he said, like, whatever you are saying is absolutely true, and it's coming from a farmer himself.
Wow. Yeah.
And a few other farmers also, isme naya kya hai? Like, what is new in this?
Right.
It's like,
Okay.
I mean, they know everything.
Yeah.
So it's not like I'm exposing something new.
Got it. But you are exposing it to the public.
Yes.
Which the public
is the consumer.
Yeah, the consumer.
The film is mainly focused on consumer because only the people, when what we demand, they supply. So when the demand reduces, the cruelty also reduces automatically. Yeah.
So you've really been around the dairy farms, so you can really confirm that if people here in India consume dairy, that equals to cow abuse and cow slaughter, like that you can.
Yes, it's
confirm.
very straightforward, and cows
Yeah.
and buffaloes both.
Yeah,
yes.
both. Yeah. So actually, I spoke to a PETA activist just yesterday, and I recently visited a buffalo dairy farm, which was horrendous. They were all chained. They were sitting in their own feces. All the calves were tied away. It was really something out of a nightmare to visit. And then I talked to this guy, and he said that he visited a Gaushala, which had cows, not buffaloes, or maybe both, I don't know, but it had focused on cows more than buffaloes. And he was so shocked to find out, I think that's what turned him vegan, I think. He was so shocked to find out that they had like a rape rack at the Gaushala, which means that the cows were exploited. So I think that was a big shock for him, because in India, they view buffaloes as something different, which is why most of the dairy comes from buffaloes, what I understood from the dairy industry. But most Indians don't know that this also happens to cows, and I feel like that is important to stress to the public, that to confirm that this does happen to cows as well as buffaloes, because unfortunately they don't care about cows as much, about buffaloes as much as cows.
Yeah, and again, it's a very complex subject within itself.
Yeah.
And you can make an entire documentary on how animal cruelty happens within Gaushala, and how religious communities misuse that term.
Can you actually explain for people who don't know what a Gaushala is?
So, in the layman understanding, or even my understanding as of today, ideal Gaushala is something where cows are kept as a sanctuary for their protection.
Yeah.
But in practice, the word is very loosely followed. You know, it's even if you are a dairy farmer, you can have 5 cows and a temple in one corner. You can call yourself as you are running a Gaushala. You know, there are no specific standards like what is to be considered as Gaushala or not. So that's why you see a lot of companies today, they are selling that we are selling A2 milk from Gaushala, straight from Gaushala.
A2
but
milk,
at the end, it's completely a business model.
Yeah.
So the word Gaushala lost its meaning, I would say.
Yeah. That's so interesting. The A2 milk, I visited a cafe here in Bombay, and they promoted this milk as if it was like a good milk, but is that also just a misconception about like A2 milk?
Yes, like we covered in the film, A2 milk is nothing. It's a marketing strategy.
Crazy.
At its core,
Yeah.
yes. Because, how can you sell more milk or at a premium price?
Yeah. Right.
You can do it by differentiating yourself from the other and making it some kind of special focus to it, which unfortunately the word A2 came into existence there, and it doesn't even origin from India. It came from New Zealand businessman.
Okay.
And he is a researcher, and during his research he found out that the cows in New Zealand have a different protein structure of casein compared to the cows elsewhere. So they did their own research, and he claimed, I would say, that their milk is better than A1 milk. The milk from outside New Zealand, he named it as A1. The milk from his home country, he named it as A2.
Okay.
And he claimed that A2 is better than A1.
Okay.
And he even started a company called the A2 Milk Company, and he started selling milk under that. It was back in 2000. Now the milk is sold in New Zealand, Australia, China, and I think few other countries.
Interesting.
And coincidentally, I don't know how or who found out that milk produced by Indian cows, that is the cows that have a hump, they produce A2 milk, and buffaloes and the breeds that are imported from Europe, they produce A1 milk.
Okay.
So it became a marketing opportunity. How to turn something into a business opportunity, find something unique about selling strategy and sell it to the people.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, people believed it, this is probably true, and it's still going on.
Yeah, so what about an A1 and A2 milk dairy farm? Is just the same as every other dairy farm?
As far as I see it, it's same as every other. And
Yeah.
if you see, there are a lot of people. They even started claiming that my buffalo also gives A2 milk. For example, there is a brand that also sells A2 milk. They even advertise very publicly.
Yeah. So they're very much using it as a marketing tool, and it's just a label at the end of the day.
Because they are losing business, right?
Are they?
How can you challenge a business by joining them?
Yeah.
Not by, if you cannot challenge them, join them.
Wow. That is so... I love the fact that you debunked that, because I feel like people still... This cafe was a vegan-friendly cafe, and they're very much advertising their... I don't know if it's A1 or A2, I don't know, but it was something with A milk that they had, and they really advertised it as a good source of milk.
Yeah. And also this, if you visit a dairy collection centers...
What is that?
So this happens in organized sector where milk is collected from farmers at these collection zones. They are called collection centers.
Okay.
It exists like roughly one in a village or few villages, Okay. The collected milk is then transported to the factory where it is pasteurized and processed and packed and sold.
Yeah.
And so I went to one of these collection centers, and whatever milk that people are coming, whether it is cow milk or buffalo milk, they are dumping the milk in the same container.
Really?
So what you are consuming may not be cow milk or may not be buffalo milk. It's a mix of cow and buffalo. It can be mix of 1,000 cows also, 1,000 buffaloes, because these mix goes into huge tanks. That tanks goes into bigger tanks. It gets mixed up, So what the average consumer when they buy a packet of milk, it may have contain droplets of 1,000 or even more animals.
Yeah. And the same with the beef export, because so basically, how do you know roughly how many buffaloes and cows farms are there? Like, what's the percentage of buffaloes versus cows in India for dairy?
So according to livestock census, which the 20th livestock census released by our Indian government, there are estimated to be 300 million cows and buffaloes, of which it includes bulls as well.
Okay.
So they have even shown the data that it is roughly the cows and bulls which are considered as cattle, where buffaloes are not considered as cattle according to that census. Cows and bulls total about 200 million, whereas roughly, if I don't remember the exact numbers as of now, but whereas buffaloes about 100 million.
Okay. That's interesting that I thought it would be more, but yeah.
And it is quite surprising, but at the same time, buffalo slaughter is very legal, so which is why their numbers are almost at the lower rate, because as soon as a buffalo becomes dry, it is easy to do business.
Got it.
So you can sell them off. And it is legal in most of the states in India, buffalo slaughter. Even in states like, I think, Gujarat and Rajasthan, you can do buffalo slaughter business.
So in India they differentiate the law between cow slaughter and buffalo slaughter.
Yes.
Correct. So when they do the beef export, do you think is that all buffalo beef?
So
like meat,
the government of India claims it is buffalo beef, but when I inquired the beef traders, for example, in Nepal and Indonesia, they say that they import only cow beef from India. So it's completely contradictory.
Wow.
What the government of India says, we only allow buffalo beef, and the traders from these countries saying that we exclusively import cow beef. The reason is cow beef, according to them, tastes better than buffalo beef, and no one prefers buffalo beef, and buffalo beef is also cheaper. So these are the reasons why everyone wants cow beef.
But so just so I'm understanding it correctly, they say they are exporting only buffalo, but the receivers are saying it's cows, which means that is it actually buffalo and they're being lied to, or it's the They're lying about
I don't
it
think
being
the
buffalo.
receivers can lie about it because of the taste factor.
Okay.
They
okay.
cannot sell much if it is a buffalo beef,
Okay.
and they can do business well. They
Yeah.
can do more sales if it
If
is
it's
cow beef.
Okay, got it.
And there are also intermediary traders. People buy from India, like for example Indonesia and Vietnam, and they sell it to other countries like China and other.
Okay.
It's a very complex trade system.
Yeah. That is so interesting. And could you share a bit about what you learned about what it is that happens to the calves who are born, the male calves who are rejects of the dairy industry? Is it legal to send them to the slaughterhouse?
So again, it depends on the state-specific laws. Many states ban slaughter of calves, whereas some states, like for example Kerala, I think there is no ban about the slaughter of calves.
Okay.
So you can see if you go by road while traveling, I personally seen those places where people are openly transporting calves. There are truck full of calves, no other animals. They are transported to slaughter. And coming to states, for example, states like Maharashtra, where calf slaughter, even in buffalo calf slaughter is illegal, they're mostly starved to death. When you don't feed the calf, they will die out of hunger. And if someone asks questions, they can simply say Bimar.
They got sick.
They got sick and died. So they do different ways of killing the calves, especially the male calves. Because they don't give milk.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people don't know this.
Yes.
They don't know that the cows get sent to slaughter, and they don't know that male calves get slaughtered. When I was at the dairy farm...
Even if you look at the livestock census, the percentage of male calves, whether it is cattle or buffalo, the population percentage is significantly lower. For cows, it is for cows and bulls, it is 25% male. For buffaloes, it's only 10%.
Wow.
So ideally, it should be 50-50.
Yeah.
So you can understand based on those statistics alone.
Yeah, about what's happening.
Yeah, it's self-explanatory.
Yeah. So when I visited the buffalo dairy farm, I think there was a female calf who was also being sent to slaughter because the farmer claimed that they have to pay a rent per calf or cow, so they couldn't keep all of them. So even the females had to be sent to slaughter. Is this something that you've also heard of in your research?
Not exactly, but there are many places, like in these circumstances where farmers are financially in a position couldn't raise even female calves. They are also sold for slaughter. At the end, it's simple economics, profit and loss. As long as you are able to make profit, you can keep them.
Okay.
So when you cannot make profit, even if it is a female calf, it is sold. Yes.
Wow, insane.
In fact, the truck that I saw in Kerala, which I told you, like it's carrying all the calves to the slaughter, it mostly have female calves, not male calves.
Really?
Yeah.
Why is that?
I don't know the exact reason, because we were on the road, we couldn't stop and talk, and because it's very commonly practiced, we felt it is risky to ask those questions.
Okay. Can you share? I think the transport is an important topic because when it's what I've understood from the Western dairy industry is that yes, these cows get sent to slaughter when they can no longer produce milk. Now in India, cow slaughter, buffalo slaughter is legal everywhere, but cow slaughter isn't legal everywhere. So what about the transport then that these animals have to go through to get to a slaughterhouse in a state where it is legal?
So ideally, transport of cows and buffaloes, there are state-specific laws.
Okay.
And many states are not allowed to transport, at least without permission, from one state to another, but everything happens.
Okay.
In fact, one activist told me that there are on average at least 300 to 400 trucks travel through Delhi alone, the national capital.
Wow.
Each truck would be containing about 40 to 60 cows and buffaloes, And these things are happening illegally in our national capital, and you can imagine how it can happen in the rest of India.
Right, exactly. Where it's not very controlled.
And one of the reasons, probably the only reason why animal cruelty is so prevalent everywhere in the world is animals, they cannot speak the way you and I can communicate, Of course, they feel pain and they speak in their own language, but humans don't listen, and they don't have the voting power.
The
voting power
Oh, the animals don't. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I know.
Yeah.
100%.
And animal rights movement is the only movement where the victims are not the activists.
Right.
Yes.
100%. Yeah.
So when victims are not the activists, even the activists tend to overlook certain things. They think from their perspective rather than the
animals.
Animals' perspective,
Yeah.
which is why empathy is very important for our movement. We always need to put ourselves in the position of animals rather than sympathize with them. When
Yeah.
you sympathize, you act differently. When you empathize, you act differently.
Wow.
Which is why in the film that we made, we made under the production house Empathy Films, because empathy is the key factor.
I love that. Is that your the name of your production
Yes.
house? Yeah. Amazing. And how is it for you to visit all these dairy farms? I think you visited a slaughterhouse even. I mean, when I visited the Buffalo Dairy Farm and I had nightmares the night after about it. How did you deal with your own emotional, like mental health?
Initially, it was difficult, back before I became an activist.
Yeah.
Occasionally, often, like every time while I walk, return from my office to my home, when I see a slaughterhouse, like a chicken shop,
Yeah.
it traumatizes me. I used to enter the bathroom. I'll just lock the door. I don't want my roommates to find out that I am crying. And I just cry for like half an hour, or these kind of. I was at that kind of sensitivity.
Yeah, of course.
But then the more I became an activist, the more I realized that crying doesn't help. It may give some kind of emotional relief within, but it is not the solution. You need to be emotionally detached while working for animals. Unfortunately or fortunately, that's the way to go. At least you need to be smart enough to know where you have to emotionally detach yourself from it. So I know that there is cruelty happening.
Yeah.
I know that it is there, but I am emotionally detaching myself. Like, I am not traumatizing myself.
Okay.
I don't know how to put it in exact words, but that is how I do it. I cannot watch slaughterhouse footage at this moment if you show it from your phone, but when it comes to work, when I feel like it's absolutely necessary for activism, then I don't mind watching it, because I go into that zone where I put my emotions behind and watch it.
Powerful.
Yes.
Yeah. And
I think it requires some kind of practice, mental practice to do it. And to some extent, this practice came from reading Bhagavad Gita. Because Krishna insisted that you should focus on the work rather than the goals, and you should not get emotionally attached to the work. So
wow. Yeah.
I'm translating in a very loose manner, of course.
But emotional detachment from the
even in Buddhism also it is mentioned. Buddha always says that the simple philosophy: if a string is too tight and you struck it, it will break. If it is too loose, it doesn't produce the sound that we need. So it should be at a perfect balance.
Yeah, balance, of course. Yeah. Because I know that there's a lot of you do share a lot of footage in the documentary. I think I saw like a cow getting hit with a hammer or a buffalo, I don't know, but just like as a way to kill them, like really impactful, like really bad stuff.
The most of the slaughterhouse footage that you saw in the film were not shot by myself, but it was shot by various organizations with whom we have collaborated in the making of this film.
Okay.
So and the reason for that is, while we were making the film, I thought of doing filming the footages myself, but I asked myself, if I have to do this, I'll be wasting one more year unnecessarily. So why don't I borrow footages that are already present? Because it's the same story. It's not like something new I'm going to film or present. Yeah. So that's when I reached out to various NGOs, and they are very cooperative, and they shared their footage with us. Amazing, and that's how we incorporated in the film. That's why I always say Maa Ka Doodh is not my effort; it's a team effort.
Yeah.
Yes.
No, I love it. I witnessed some abuse on the dairy farm, and I tried to record it because I was like, I need to record this, But I was like shaking while doing it, and like it is very hard. So I'm thankful for all the activists out there who are recording it.
Yes.
Do you have one final message that you'd like to leave with the listeners
So
today?
my message to the viewers is, first of all, please watch the film Maa Ka Doodh.
Yeah.
Not because of we made it, or not because a lot of us put ourselves in risk in making this film, but because you need to understand where the dairy that you are consuming is coming from.
Yeah.
And I insist that you not only watch the film but also start inquiring. Go to your nearest dairy farm or a temple and
Yeah.
ask questions. Where are all the male calves and bulls, and how can you acquire, if it is a temple, how can you acquire such huge amounts of dairy?
Yeah.
And you can ask your local MPs and MLAs or government that why are laws poorly enforced,
Yeah.
why are buffaloes discriminated, you know
Yeah.
try to visit slaughterhouse. I know it's very difficult to visit slaughterhouse and get footages, and try to visit them and see the reality, observe the data, just ask questions, keep asking questions. That's one
Yeah.
thing I insist. Yes,
Yeah.
the more you find out, the more you realize why you have to go vegan.
Yeah,
Yes.
I love that. It's all about the awareness, which is what
Yes.
your film is all about, is raising awareness about what happens
Yes.
to these poor animals. So thank you so much for sharing that. That was really great.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for all the listeners for tuning in to today's episode, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye. Thank you so much for tuning in to the Changemakers podcast. My name is farahamberh, and I hope that you enjoyed the episode. If you did, it would really mean the world to me if you could rate the podcast, and also remember to follow the podcast to stay updated on new episodes. Thank you so much for tuning in today, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.